This first episode is entitled You Deserve to Be Single. Knew that we needed to go separate ways, as per usual. Breakups are hard to do. It's so much easier to stay together. Are my lips dry? Am I here having a conversation with you guys with dry lips? Anyway.
Yes, sis. Your lips have been dry this whole time, but we weren't gonna interrupt you.
Anyway, but as I got older, I realized the importance of not dating with purpose. The importance of getting to know a lot of different people without the intention of a marriage. But again, I'm speaking to myself, okay? I am the pot, and the pot is calling the pot black. But if you are the kettle and you just so happen to have a little bit of soot on you, this information is for you too. I'm talking to myself too. I deserve to be dragged even right now in my dating life. This video is sponsored by my brother's hat collection because I desperately need a retwist. So my name is Celine, and this is the start of my podcast. I do not have a name for it, okay? I've been struggling with names since the beginning of time, a year ago. And anyway, this first episode is entitled You Deserve to Be Single. I've been struggling with recording this episode and writing about this episode for a good 2 years, and it started when I went through my most recent breakup, and me and my boyfriend, we knew that we needed to go separate ways, as per usual. Breakups are hard to do. It's so much easier to stay together, and then you end up hurting each other even more. Yeah, I remember like when it really came to that intersection where you needed to make a choice, and I was confiding in a friend, and I just kind of whispered underneath my breath during one of our conversations. I was like, ugh, I deserve to be single. And he was like, say that again? And I was like, I deserve to be single. And he was like, first of all, yes, and second of all, you need to write an essay on that. And I was like, I do. And ever so often he checks in to see if I've written the essay, and I've tried. It's just like every time I've written an entire essay, I scrap it. Every time I've recorded a podcast episode, I've been doing this on and off for 2 years, like recording and writing and scrapping, because I just feel like this is a really heavy topic. I want to make sure that it's filled with knowledge and insight, because I'm not just talking to people who might be watching this episode. I'm talking to myself too. I deserve to be dragged even right now in my dating life. I still deserve to be dragged, okay? People give the best advice. Are usually the ones who don't take their own advice. So growing up in the community that I did, I think there was a lot of emphasis and a lot of pressure. Well, a lot of emphasis placed on marriage. Still is. I grew up in an ultra-conservative community. I'm a Seventh-day Adventist-ish. I observed that our young women were particularly under pressure to marry and marry well, and to preserve themselves and their purity and their dignity. And it's a lot. It's a lot. It can be a lot. If you grew up in a very conservative church or culture, you know what I'm talking about. And even if you're not cognizant of it, you are part of a system. You probably just don't realize where you are under more pressure than your male counterparts. And with that being said, I think there is a lot of subconscious lack of self-esteem and self-worth that occurs when we are dating or talking or courting, where we hold on to relationships because we're afraid that we're nearing the end of a childbearing age, or we might not find someone better, or, I just need to hurry up and get it over with. And I'm just going to speak from my personal experiences, because I think it's important to do that instead of like making it seem as if I'm attacking young women who may be in positions where they might be confused or unhappy. Oh, and this is not just for young women. This is also for men, because men do find themselves in these situations often, quite a bit, and they just don't say anything. The reason I came to that conclusion of deserving singleness, especially at that juncture in my relationship, is when I realized I was too young to be stressing myself about the things I was stressing myself about. So this was like 2 to 4 years ago. And the reason there's that long time period is because breakups don't happen overnight. There's usually a period of time where you're discussing with your significant other, like, maybe, and then you kind of flip-flop around and you're like, let's give it another try. And you give it another try and it doesn't necessarily work out. And like, yeah, there's just that flip-flopping stage, which is very unhealthy. Sometimes we put so much pressure on ourselves at such a young age, because I'm 27 now. This year I'll be turning 28. And I'm looking back and I'm actually looking at all of my relationships and all of the guys that I used to talk to or date. And I realized that we had put ourselves under so much pressure because, first of all, our communities are putting pressure on us. Like, when are you going to get married? And when are you going to make it official? And you guys are such a cute couple. And we have to be wary about outside influence and how those can really affect the long-term decisions that we make, such as marriage, because you get married to someone you regret getting married to, and then you feel like you can't leave, and then you start to have kids, and then you bring kids into an unhappy home that's fueled by an unhappy marriage, and then you have kids. It's just a cycle that needs to be broken, and we don't break it. I think there's also this fear of not finding the right partner, so we tend to settle for the people that we find who might be great people, they might be awesome people, but like deep down inside we want someone who we're more compatible with, or someone who satisfies a certain need, right? Or a certain longing. Like, for example, some women just can't be with a lazy man. And lazy, the definition of lazy might vary from one person to the next, but you have to know what your definition is of whatever it is that bothers you. And you have to tell yourself, am I willing to live with this for the rest of my life? Well, sometimes we look around in the pool that we're in, especially if you're a Christian and your pool is already very limited because you're looking for men they have to be baptized and they have to do this and they have to do that. They can't drink, they can't smoke, they can't, so your pools are very, very limited, and you're looking for this man who more than likely doesn't exist, okay? And sometimes we get with people because they sell us a dream that they know that we want to hear, and then they end up reverting to who they always were, and then we become disappointed. And that brings me into my other point, where we don't encourage enough dating. I remember I was listening to, I still follow this lady on YouTube. Her name is Ashley Empowers, and she talks about dating with purpose. And I love her content. I love her as a person. I think that her information is relevant. But I kind of stuck to that whole, and I may have misinterpreted it, because when I was listening to her content, I was relatively young and impressionable, and I may have misinterpreted it a bit when she was talking about dating with purpose. But as I got older, I realized the importance of not dating with purpose. The importance of getting to know a lot of different people without the intention of a marriage. And I have to say, the period after my breakup where I was doing that, where I was just like talking to guys and getting to know them without the intention of marrying or doing anything serious, it was very enlightening. Very enlightening. I learned, especially if you're someone like me who grew up in a bubble and there are lots of things that you need to unlearn. Let me tell you, it was a good experience to date outside of my Adventist bubble, date non-Seventh-day Adventists, hear different perspectives, because I was accustomed to this one particular sort of man, and I thought this is what was good for me. Not to say that Adventists or Christian men are bad, but they know how to play the game, okay? They know how to play the system and present as a certain sort of gentleman. We all have baggage, right? We all are imperfect. But they know what a Christian young woman is looking for, and they know how to present themselves as that. It's a very specific sort of man. I don't know. I don't know why. It's like if we all give a list, all like the Christian young women, like lists are identical. And it's really harmful because that person does not exist. I mean, they might exist, but like you might have to make some concessions here, there, and a lot of times, especially talking to some of my girlfriends, like I realize that we don't want to make concessions, and it's like that's an impossible ask. Like nobody is perfect. Like you are going to get a flawed man or a flawed woman at some point in time, and you're going to have to be like, okay, baby, I accept you, even though this is not everything that I wanted. Not everything that I wanted. But yeah, not dating with purpose, it's very important, because when you finally decide to date with purpose, you know who you're looking for and you're not wasting your time with anyone else's. The most important part about deserving singleness is that you deserve to pour all the love that you generally pour into somebody else into yourself. And that is something that I learned relatively recently in the last couple of years. I don't know what's wrong with me. Especially as like an adolescent and a teenager and someone in my early to mid 20s, I was just loving on people way too hard in my relationships, in my friendships, pouring in too much time and effort at work, at church. It's just like, I'm not saying that there are people in our lives who do not deserve that sort of effort, but in all of your giving, make sure that you are either getting or that you are pouring back within yourself, because as cliche as it sounds, you cannot pour from an empty vessel. And I learned that the hard way, because eventually I broke and I just could not give to anyone. I'm still in the healing phase of that, where like I had to tell my friends, yo, I need a minute, okay? I just need some space, because this all goes back to boundaries. This is no one else's fault. Like if you find yourself in that position, again, speaking from my own personal experiences and speaking about myself, I did not cut off time and attention for myself. I did not build boundaries, and I allowed people to take advantage of my boundaries. And there came a point in time where I was like, we cannot proceed. It is so much better to have boundaries and approach things with care than to like reach the end of your rope and like just cut people off. And I think that is how things kind of happened to me within the past couple of months. I was like, I can no longer deal. Everybody leave me alone. That would not have happened had I paid more attention to myself instead of always trying to cater to other people. And it comes back to haunt you. It comes back to bite you in the ass, because you deserve that love and that affection and that care. And like, I think sometimes it's so difficult to balance, especially, in this day and age. I think COVID-19 and the quarantine and us being indoors forced us. You are supposed to be an autofocus type of thing. What are you doing? You're playing games with me. It forced us to do a lot of introspection. Like we couldn't go nowhere. We couldn't run from our problems. We had to stay home and stew in our thoughts and our actions and who we were as individuals and as people, and have a level of introspection that we probably didn't have before. Again, I'm speaking to myself, okay? I am the pot, and the pot is calling the pot black. But if you are the kettle and you just so happen to have a little bit of soot on you, this information is for you too. So there came a point in time where I realized that all of the privileges of being single, there's so many that I did not realize. I had never seen myself as one of those persons who was desperate to get into a relationship. But when a relationship did not go the way that I wanted it to or the way I expected, I was definitely devastated. I'm not a perfectionist by any means, but I just don't like failure. Is that weird? Like I'm not a perfectionist, really. I'm not OCD. I just don't like failure. I absolutely hate failure. Sometimes if I know I'm gonna fail something, I just don't try, or if I think I'm gonna fail it. And that goes for relationships. So like I typically don't start relationships until I'm like, you are solid and we could do something solid. And then when it goes sideways, I'm like, I just like fall apart. And I came to realize that this is the ebb and flow of life. This is necessary. Breakups are necessary. They help you to grow. They help you to understand. And our story is a part of a bigger patchwork, a bigger framework that helps to lend to the stories of our community, that helps, each other to grow as a person who isn't married and doesn't have a significant other and doesn't have children. Because I realized that it affords me so many more liberties and so many more freedoms, and I'm disappointed that I didn't take advantage of that more. That I didn't travel or move or date different types of people. I did take myself out on dates a lot after, in between my periods of singleness. That's one thing I definitely did. I just really enjoyed, because I love food, okay? So I enjoyed going to a restaurant and sitting down and eating by myself. Does not faze me, because food is my friend. I mean, if y'all see my belly. The consequence of valuing yourself as a single unit. And I mean, we are not meant to be alone. I think it's so important that we understand that. I think it's Maya Angelou who said something to that effect, no one can do this life alone. At the same time, before you join, try to be a functioning part of a greater... Why are you not focusing? Before you try to become a functioning part of a greater system, a relationship, a community, an active part of a church, community, just anything, make sure that you are working on yourself actively. I think one of the greatest steps that I took towards self-work was going to therapy. And therapy has been helpful in allowing me to confront a lot of things in myself. Sometimes we like to go to therapy and we complain about other people, and your therapist will look you dead in your face and be like, let's talk about you though. What are you doing though? How have you contributed to the situation? And like sometimes my therapist is coming for my neck and I'm like, ease up just a little bit. It just made me realize how, are my lips dry? Am I here having a conversation with you guys with dry lips? Anyway.
Yes, sis. Your lips have been dry this whole time, but we weren't gonna interrupt you.
Anyway, that's my story for today. I'm gonna post this one, okay? This one is gonna be the one that I post. This was just me talking from the heart. It's still a topic that I wish that I could this is not going to be one of my most, at least in my opinion, one of my most introspective dialogues. I usually take so long to write pieces on Medium. That's where I'm most active, Medium. I also have a ghost page on Medium. So if you notice I don't post on Medium for a while, it's probably because I'm ranting on my pen page, because I get to say things that I won't be able to say under my real name and rant about things I usually wouldn't be able to talk about. Listen, I hope this helps someone out there understand that, I don't know, again, it sounds so cliche that it's not a crime to be single, and singleness can be beautiful, but it's there's some, you're gonna say it though. My camera just cut out. There's just some overplayed tropes of singleness and the positives and how it's a gift, but no one talks beyond that, as in the things that I address. At least I haven't heard people talk about. I was just like, let me address it. Let me talk about it. Let me say what's on my mind for episode 1. And I can't wait to film episode 2, because 2021 we're breaking our shell and we're coming out. Anyway, thanks for listening to my ramblings. If you have any suggestions for podcast names, let me know. Because life is short, best to say what's on your mind. Who's gonna kill you? Not a soul. Nobody can judge you but God. Anyway, peace.